For those of you who have a VR headset or watch a lot of YouTubers, you've probably heard of the game Boneworks and its sequel, BONELAB. One of them is a fantastic game, filled to the brim with creativity and hidden lore, and it's just a great time. The other is a disappointment. But why? Why is BONELAB a disappointment, despite being an overall improvement from the first game? Well, let's just start with the story and get through that. So that's the end of the story section. Yeah, this game has almost no story, with you starting as a person being executed just to escape that execution and join the lava gang, all run by Jay, who is Jimmy Wong, and you now have to prove yourself by playing the rest of the game. Yeah, that's the story. It's minimal at best, and it's not like the first game had a massive story either, but it had direction and hidden lore to be engaged in if you do happen to come across it. But none of that is present in BONELAB, causing the game to feel that it lacks direction. But let's go into it, shall we? The campaign structure is miserable at best. Levels often feel half-assed, and when they are starting to get good, that good feeling only lasts for a short amount of time. It's like when you finally get that girl you wanted but realize that you can only last 5 seconds. The campaign is only 4 hours long, immediately much shorter than the first game, which takes about 11 hours to finish. Going more into the campaign structure, the campaign consists of going from level to level to gain the next ability or to just get to the next location. But what sucks is that sometimes these levels just feel like they are strung together as an afterthought, so that they often don't connect, making the whole campaign now feel choppy. But if you have played these games, then you would know that the story and campaign are minimal parts of the series, and that both are really just an excuse for this game to get you into its fantastic gameplay. Or for this game, poorly done gameplay. BONELAB is a physics-based VR shooter, which is really cool as it is a smaller genre due to being much more labor-intensive to make. But Boneworks also was a physics-based shooter, so as its sequel, the physics are naturally improved. Things like climbing, shooting, running, and more all feel better. My hand is finally not glitching into my body anymore, causing me to not spiral to my death anytime I try to climb a pipe. And the new features to drive vehicles in this game are great. A bit nauseating, but still great. But it's when you get into this game's new gimmick that things start to fall apart. This game's gimmick is being able to change your avatar based on the situation you are in. Do you need to climb a tall tree? Well, you can become a Siren Head imitation just for that purpose. What about being able to crush everybody's skull at a moment's notice? Then become the Street Fighter knockoff character. Or did you ever want to have boobs? Well, now you can, and all with your own jiggle physics as an anime waifu. Whatever you need, you have a way to change into that avatar. Now, on paper, this sounds pretty cool. If it was at all used in the game, I would not be calling this a gimmick if it had proper uses in the game, which it doesn't. During the campaign, you unlock each character back to back, but that character is really only important for that one level that it's introduced in, and it's quickly forgotten in future levels, as that future level is not designed with these characters in mind. This lack of use in future levels helps to contribute to how the campaign feels not thought out and tied by threads. This also leads many to the fair belief that this game was never made to be played as a story game, but as a sandbox game. You can go into what is the equivalent of Minecraft creative mode and do whatever you please with the open environments and mods, which have native support integrated with this game to make mod creation so much easier. But even after 6 months, the mod support is lacking hard, along with its sandbox getting boring quite fast. But of course, this is a VR game with not as much traction as something like Half-Life Alyx, so don't expect a crap ton of mods. And you know what, I just want to complain about the terrible moon level, so excuse me for ranting about what is possibly the stupidest level in a game that I have played, and it is pretty much all user error. In the moon level, you can turn into a little gremlin astronaut. I'll stick to having boobs, thank you. So you leave the room and have awesome zero gravity physics. You start to run around in search of the objective here, which is simply to get to the exit and have to walk across Narnia to get to each location at the slowest speed of 1. Oh, I'm sorry, was the music getting too loud? Because that was the sound of your brain melting from the ever-looping soundtrack as you stay in this level walking aimlessly for an hour, standing in real life that whole time with your palms sweaty, knees weak and arms heavy, all to go back to the beginning of the level and find out that you're a stupid fucking mistake and a miserable excuse of a human being as there was a map telling you the exact location of the exit the whole time. Throughout this long and grueling journey of jumping on the moon, you will most likely notice the graphics, which look alright. The game looks better than Boneworks in almost every way, such as shadows, textures, models, and more. But there is much less detail in the world, so it can be crammed onto the Quest 2. Environments are lacking objects, creating that empty feel despite the first game generally not being as empty. I mean, comparing the two environments, you can see how one is more alive than the other. Overall, it looks good and pulls off the simulation vibe pretty well, but suffers from having to be crammed onto a mobile headset. headset, despite me running it off of a gaming PC, causing the game to at times feel lifeless due to being so empty. But what's not lifeless is the fire spreading in my room from the heat coming out of my VR headset's headphones. The soundtrack is just superb and amazing. Even if the game was completely terrible, which it's not, I would still buy it at full price just to hear its fantastic soundtrack, which is luckily available on every streaming service such as Spotify and iTunes. I mean, you have some absolute bangers in here and all of them fit perfectly into the game. Like, you have some crazy EDM when driving the go-karts. Or heck, if you just want to chill at home, this game has you covered. The first game had a great soundtrack, but this one does wonders and even makes me question my opinion on this game. Hell, even while writing this script, I was thinking maybe it's not you, it's me. No, screw that, it's you. This game suffers from what many sequels suffer from, and that is not knowing where to go or what to do with the game. This game lacks direction and relies on player support, something that it is currently lacking. But what is great is that the developers are still supporting this game with new content just like they did with the first game. I believe as I was writing the script, a new update is currently in testing in its completely free beta branch. And despite the negativity that I have spoken throughout this video, I don't hate the game. I enjoyed it for the short experience that it was, even if it ended up making me just want to play the game's prequel, Boneworks, again. But ultimately, the reason this game was so disappointing is that it is one of the most expensive VR games available, and that this game feels more like a tech demo than the tech demo. While Boneworks is like Half-Life 2 with a fully fledged story, BONELAB is the Gmod that's supposed to be fueled by player creation, which is something it currently lacks. Hopefully in the future we will see even more content made by the developers and the community surrounding this game. But until then, BONELAB will remain a disappointment.